Welcome everybody to tonight's regularly scheduled City Council meeting. If I can ask you all to please rise for the invocation and please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. Tonight's invocation will be given by Pastor Jason Garcia. He is the media pastor at Celebration Church.
God, thank you so much for the great city of Fairhope, Lord. God, tonight we just pray that you just put your hand over this meeting, Lord. Give us wisdom, give us insight, and Lord, help us to make this city the best that it can possibly be. Lord, we just want to thank you for the things that you've done in Fairhope so far, God, the things you're doing and the things that you will do in the future. And Lord, tonight we just thank you for Fairhope, Lord. In your name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Thank you, Reverend Garcia. Appreciate you. Okay, Council, just a couple of orders of business. We have been asked by our Director of Operations, Mr. Richard Peterson, to reject all the bids and so that it can be put out for rebid for the side stream storage project. And I'm going to ask that we amend tonight's agenda and add that as item number 24. Also, on item 19 in your packages, there were a couple of sentences that were left out of the resolution. This is regarding the purchase of the recreation land. Just added a sentence that authorizes the council president to execute the documents necessary to complete the closing and acquire the title to the property. So if I could, I'd like to entertain a motion to amend the agenda to add the item 24 and amend resolution on item 19.
So moved.
Second. We have a motion and a second to amend the agenda as stated. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor of amending the agenda as discussed, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, please say nay. Okay, the agenda has been amended. Thank you, Council. First order of business will be to approve the minutes of the special budget work session of October the 7th and the minutes of the October 9th regular City Council meeting, work session, and agenda meetings. Do you have any additions, deletions, or changes to those minutes, Council? Okay, hearing none, I will entertain a motion to approve those minutes as submitted.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the minutes as submitted, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, please say nay. Okay, those minutes are approved. Thank you. Mayor Wilson is not in attendance tonight. Ms. Lynn Mazer will give the mayor's report.
Good evening, Council. Tonight's report is fairly short. Every year we hold an employees luncheon to let our city employees know how much we appreciate their hard work and dedication to the city and its citizens. If you had a sense last Thursday that work sort of came to a standstill for a couple of hours, it's because that's when we held this year's luncheon. And we had a turnout, record number of employees for lunch this year. During that lunch every year, we recognize employees with better than 5 years worth of service. And this year it was from 5 years to 35 years of service with the city. It's an amazing thing that you see the kind of loyalty that our workforce shows the city and its citizens, and we are truly honored to work with all of them. We also honored our employees of the year. Each director chooses the employee in his or her department who best represents the standard of service that we strive to give our citizens. Dedication, caring, ethics, sense of responsibility, and willingness to help coworkers are just a few of the considerations that go into choosing the Department Employee of the Year. From the Department Employees of the Year, we choose the overall City Employee of the Year. This one person is the one the directors and the mayor feel has gone above and beyond at every level and who best represents the city in every way. I'd like to share with you this year's winners. From the Parks and Rec who has served his or her country and has also used the leadership skills and abilities learned in service to the nation to better serve the community through volunteerism. Tonight, we would like to honor our 2019 Veteran of the Year. At this time, I would like to have Frank Connell, our 2018 Veteran of the Year, to come up to the podium and present the plaque.
Thank you. Can I turn this around? Yeah, it's a great honor for me, number one, to have won the award, but more important, to be giving this award to a man that I have known for the past 6 or 7 years, Larry Diemko. Larry was a Chief Master Sergeant in the United States Air Force. He served 32 years on active duty, mainly in the area of ammunition, you know, the guys that arm the aircraft. Upon retirement, Larry moved to Fairhope, and in 2010, when the VFW organized an honor guard, Larry was one of the first ones to step up and be part of that. Now, subsequently, the VFW Honor Guard has transitioned into a separate honor guard group, Armed Forces Honor Guard, of which both Larry, myself, and you see a number of our members here in uniform that are part of that. Larry has had many leadership roles throughout. He was the commander of the Honor Guard when they were in the VFW, and he's also was our initial commander when we reorganized as the Armed Forces Honor Guard. And Larry currently is the quartermaster, the guy that takes care of all the equipment. You don't need to hear much more from me, so without further ado, please give a great big hand to Larry Diemko, our first Air Force recipient of the Fairhope Veteran of the Year. Larry.
Thank you. If you ask any of my friends that are here tonight that I am a guy that doesn't have anything to say, they would laugh. But tonight I'm a little taken aback and at a loss for words, other than to say this is quite an honor, and I certainly appreciate everyone that was involved. Thank you greatly, very much. Okay.
Let's go outside.
Again. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Congratulations.
And fortunately, that is the end of the mayor's report because there's no way we can follow that up. More pictures.
Okay, next item on tonight's agenda will be public participation for agenda items only. Items 5 and 6 are public hearings, so you can be heard during those hearings if you want to speak to items 5 or 6. So for items 7 through 24, if you'd like to address the council on items 7 through 24, please come to the podium and state your name and address for the council. I will remind you, if you have something that's not on tonight's agenda, you will be allowed to address the council at the end of tonight's meeting. So, agenda items 7 through 24.
I'm Gray Reddard. I haven't looked at the agenda. I believe I'm item 7. It's the Fairhope Educational Authority reappointment of Gary Coles. This is in connection with is it number 8? Yes. I'm sorry. This is the same resolution we've done every year for the past 3 years, and it's reappointing a board member. It's a formality, but we have to do it to comply with law. So.
Right.
So, happy to answer any questions, but.
Any questions concerning that agenda item 8? It's pretty much academic.
Thanks very much.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Good evening, Council. Gary Gover, 300 Lincoln Street in Fairhope. Earlier today, I sent you by email some further information about comments that I earlier made regarding agenda item number 19, which had to do with air traffic over the proposed recreational land to be purchased. I would further like to say that if the land is acquired, I would like to see a great deal more public engagement in the design for use of that land. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Gover. Council, I want to address something. I could have waited until we get to that item, but to Mr. Gover's comments that it is in the approach path for the airport. I will say that is true, and so are most airports. They do, glide over heavily populated areas and major cities throughout the nation, and that's actually a largely unpopulated area that glide path is. But I want to tell you that if anybody has any concerns, the airport authority and myself being a member of that, and the engineer for the airport authority looked into that about 2 months ago, and what we were looking at was the glide slope for planes coming in and what would be allowed there. And there's currently a 20-to-1 glide slope that's required, and there's potential for the glide slope to increase to 34-to-1, and even with that, and it's only within a cone, and if you get outside of that cone, you're not subject to that. But even with that, we're so far away from the airport that by the time you get to where any structure might be in the future, that you would be 30. You could allow structures 30 or 40 feet even on the southern end of that. Currently, if you're standing at Highway 32 in that glide path, you could allow a structure 29 feet high. And that's if you're standing on Highway 32. So that goes up as you go north from there. So I wanted to just give you guys a feel good to know that we have looked into that. And we've even asked the engineer for the airport authority to give us a side view. So as you go 200 feet or 500 feet or 1,000 feet or 2,000 feet north on Highway 13 from 32, you could see what the limit of the elevations would be, and you'd quickly exceed anything that would be built on that property. Yes, sir.
Francis Ripp, I'm with the Ripp Report and also Backstory Podcast. To the comment of the air traffic that Gary brought up, it's my understanding that plane has already had to make an emergency landing there, so I wouldn't call it a glide path. But anyway, look, it is about number 19 that I'm talking about, and 22, 20 as well. When we look back at the parks and what we've done already, let's look at the history of them. First of all, we have the Triangle Park. It cost us $13 million in a lawsuit. I think we're all agreed now that it was a lawsuit. It was not supposed to be a park, but you kept telling us it was a park. So we have $13 million in it. It's valued at somewhere right around $20 million. You tried to give it away as a conservation easement, wasn't successful at that, but you've done nothing with it. So we've got $13 million over there that we've done nothing with at all. Then we went into the soccer field. We bought the wrong piece of land on the soccer field. We built the soccer field completely wrong, did not sanitize the soil. We've had coaches come here and say that it is a fair practice field, And the biggest critics of the soccer field are the kids that play on the soccer field. And you're well over $5 million on that, and there's been no accountability on that whatsoever. Tonight in the work session, I hear you talking about the K1 Center, and you ain't got any idea what you're getting into there. You can't even, you're talking about trying to put a Band-Aid on a roof over there and spend $2.65 million here on some land that's going to remain dirt. Nobody's going to do anything with it for years. But you're going to spend that money after you bought the K1 and the Nick Center, and now you're trying to figure out what to do with the K1 Center. I used to work for a pretty large contractor. That's what we called a change order dream. You get in there and you try to save this wall and that electric wall and this, and they change order you to death. And you start at $5 million, you end up at $10 million before you're over with. Kind of like the sewer plant. Remember, it was $10 million, but we ended up spending $13 million. You also have a roof on this building you got to put up with. The $2.65 million that you're going to spend, that you're going to put on this property, is going to impact the 2020 budget for the rest of the year. You're going to be readjusting figures all the way through next year trying to compensate for the $2.65 that you are putting into this property. There has been no public meeting. There's been no public participation. None whatsoever. You three gentlemen, Boone, Brown, and Burrell, did this on your own. Thank God we had 2 that voted against it. But this is on your back. There's no public support. I've seen no public support other than the rec board of the people that are endorsing it. You didn't even tell the neighbors out there. First of all, you said that there was nobody that even lived there, and they had joined the property. It's not walkable. It's not approved by the park board. They recommended not against it, and you got a 2-lane road on 3 sides. How in the world? That means every person going out there is going to have to go out there in a car. You're not going to be able to walk out there, and it's going to be sitting there for years. The last thing I heard today, right before I came in to this meeting, was from an appraisal company. I've been trying to talk to several of them. They told me that if you are buying this land on the appraisal that you have, based on the figures that you have, the hypotheticals that you have, that is not the way that a sale is done. And that the appraisal company stands a good chance of losing their license if indeed that's exactly what happens, is that you're basing this on their appraisal. Because the appraisal is not based on sales at all. It's hypotheticals, just so where you could justify doing it. I think you're making a very bad mistake. I think this is going to follow you all the way till 2020. And hopefully, for you three, I hope it's the last nail in your coffin.
Is there anyone else? And just for the record, for the audience, we paid $8.75 million for the triangle, not $13 million. It appraised for $12.75 million, not $20 million. And I'm not sure the conservation easement is dead on that either. So, anyway, anyone else? Okay, I'll move on to council comments. Councilman Robinson?
I'm going to yield my time to Councilman Conyers.
And I'm going to yield both of our time to Aaron Langley and Eastern Shore Repertory Theater. And they've got some wonderfully talented individuals that are going to come in and give us a little taste of the Lion King, which is this weekend, right here at the Civic Center. If we can maybe move some of this stand up here.
Thank you all so much. We are actually we're over in the Civic Center having dress rehearsal right now, and thankfully Councilman Conyers invited us to come over and share one of our numbers with you. We're performing this Friday, Saturday, and Sunday at 7 o'clock and 2 o'clock on Sunday. This cast is comprised of 80 kids from all over the area. A lot of them are from the Fairhope schools, we have about 4,000 field trip children who are going to come see the show too. So we wanted to present one number for you. We dance a lot in this, so we're going to try to see what happens. This song is called Shadowlands from the Broadway version of The Lion King. And this is Nala, who's going to be singing it. We also have 2 members of the Fairhope Junior City Council members in our cast, so they're happy to be here at the meeting too.
Thank you all so much, and please, everybody in the audience and everybody watching at home, make an effort to come out and watch them this weekend. It's going to be a fantastic performance. Thank you, Aaron.
I would want to apologize to everyone else. That will definitely be the highlight of the meeting. So.
Councilman Brown, any comments?
I don't have anything to follow that.
Councilman Boone?
Nothing to report.
Okay. I don't have any comments tonight either, other than what I've already said. Item number 5 is a public hearing. This is a request to rezone the property of the Fairhope Single Tax Corporation and Pauline Moyd from residential agricultural district to a planned unit development. The property is generally located at the southwest corner of the intersection of Bay Meadows Avenue and State Highway 181 in Fairhope. The parcel contains 37.961 acres, more or less. Can I get someone to introduce the ordinance, please?
I'll introduce it.
Okay, thank you. Mike?
Evening, Council President, Council. Mike Jeffries on behalf of the City Planning Department. Just introduced the ordinance tonight. It's the rezoning of approximately 38 acres, going from RA residential to a PUD or a planned unit development on the southwest corner of Bay Meadows and 181. The applicant is proposing 99 single-family dwelling units on approximately 33.66 acres, and the remainder, approximately 4.3 acres, is reserved for a future commercial parcel requiring a standalone site plan. And the requested density for the 99 units would be 2.94 units per acre. On your screens, you will see on the left side the traditional zoning map, the area highlighted in blue, the green shaded subject property is surrounded by R2 on the north and west side, unzoned property on the east side, and another PUD, Twin Beach Estates, on the south side. On the right side of your screen, just a traditional aerial photo showing that the land is predominantly vacant. There are a couple structures that are on the site that would be removed during any future development. On your screen is the proposed site plan with some of the modifications requested by Planning Commission. Draw your attention to the green space on the right side of your screen. That is a 50-foot right-of-way reserved for possible vehicular connectivity to that commercial out parcel, depending on what its future use could possibly be. Some of the standards for review of a zoning change case. Number 2 is compliance with the standards, goals, and intent of the ordinance. The purpose of this district is intended to encourage innovative development that meets the comprehensive plan goals and unique constraints of a particular site. It allows flexibility in uses and design building layouts as opposed to other zoning districts. On the screen, you can see that the proposed setbacks for lots are 52-foot minimum wide and 75-foot wide lots. Those are the 2 requested lot sizes in this development. The front setbacks are 20 feet, rear setbacks of 15, side setback of 6 feet on the 52-foot wide lots, and a side setback of 7.5 feet for the 75-foot wide lots, 25-foot street side, with a maximum lot coverage by the principal structure of 40% and 30-foot height limitation. And noted on here, the commercial parcel will be subject to a standalone site plan. Another big one is the public infrastructure to support a proposed development. Fairhope Utilities water and power are readily available, and Fairhope Utilities sewer and gas can be made available during the actual subdivision process if the rezoning is approved. Impacts on natural resources included existing conditions and ongoing post-development conditions. The lot has some elevation to it. It slopes predominantly to the southeast, where on the proposed site plan you can see is the proposed retention or detention area for the entire site. Impacts on the surrounding neighborhood, including noise, traffic, visible intrusions, potential impacts or property values. Staff does not anticipate any significant issues related to the criteria. For this zoning change to a PUD, a traffic study was required, and at the time of any future subdivision or any development, another traffic study could and probably would be required, and any improvements that were required by that traffic study would be enforced at the time. The current traffic study indicates the widening of 181 and the intersection of 181 and Bay Meadows to accommodate a northbound turn lane and a southbound or a northbound turn lane for a future signal at that intersection. The PUD located to the east of the property, Firethorn, it had a traffic study at its time of development as well. At ALDOT, there is a trigger at, I believe, 175, approximately 175 COs in that development that a traffic light will go there. So it is, we know for 100% that a traffic light at one point in time will be there. It's just the when it gets there. It all depends on the development of Firethorn and possible developments in the surrounding area. This was just, I wanted to include a map for ALDOT's future plans. We all know that Highway 181 is widening coming south. The future right-of-way is on the eastern side of 181. Therefore, any future development on this site would not be negatively affected by the widening of the road. This was the approved site plan of Twin Beach Estates that was done almost a year ago to date. This subdivision will join the stub out street that is on the north side of Twin Beach, giving this site access to Bay Meadows as well as 44 through Twin Beach Estates. And the approved site plan for Firethorn PUD, which was done in 2014. Just a few comments is the proposed PUD, it utilizes buffers that are above the minimum required to retain more of the natural forested vegetation, therefore removing less trees. The large pond is to be used as an amenity, not just a basin to capture stormwater, and the area around the pond can be used for passive recreation and active recreation alike. The developer is proposing a pond that will meet the requirements for that to be counted as 30% of the green space. Currently, the 22.8% that is provided exceeds the required 15% without it, but that green space at time of development would likely increase due to the addition of the pond calculation. Staff's recommendation to the Planning Commission was approval with the following conditions, which were verbalized in the Planning Commission meeting. The accessory dwelling setbacks would be noted as the same as all other residential as in our current zoning ordinance, and the development on the commercial parcel shall go through a standalone site plan. Planning Commission added 2 other conditions, and I wanted to note here briefly, there was an error in the report showing that condition 2, it was not intended to be included as a condition. Staff's recommendation was, as I had mentioned, verbalized into the record, and the Planning Commission adding conditions 4 and 5 as part of their recommendation, that the right-of-way shall be added to allow that vehicular connectivity between the residential and commercial portion, and that the commercial uses shall be limited to those as a B4 zoning district, which is our business and professional district. And all of those conditions have been met. Staff's behalf, I'll be happy to answer any questions, and Mr. Joe Rector is here on behalf of the applicant, Mullins LLC.
Questions from my counsel?
What could be built as it is currently zoned residential agriculture?
Currently, you could have homesteads on the site if you wanted to divide whatever as it was currently zoned. It's a minimum of a 3-acre lot size. As residential or as a RA, residential agriculture, there's not a whole lot of other uses besides farming abilities that could be done on that. And I don't have the actual use table in front of me to cite specifically what can be on there for RA. Mr. King was so happy to oblige me with one here. So you could have the allowed uses by right, single family, public open space, common open space, agricultural, rural market, and plant nursery currently. I'd point out that this was an application that was submitted in March for the May, and it was held off by staff due to an incomplete application, was heard on June 3rd as an agenda item, and tabled by the Planning Commission on July. It was held as an informal review, and then on August 5th, it was an agenda item, and when the Planning Commission made their recommendation.
Any further questions? Go ahead and open up the public hearing. If you'd like to speak to this proposed zoning ordinance, if you'll please come forward to the podium and state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, council members. My name is, who's taking the minutes?
She's taking notes.
Yes. My name is Mark Reshetko. I am a residential property owner at 9727 Derby Lane, a site west of the proposed PUD on the old Fairhope polo field. These are approximately 3-acre parcels adjacent on the western side. Currently, I'm frustrated in the process how we got so far down this road. The city website page says, what is the city doing to manage unprecedented growth? This led to the creation of the City of Fairhope Moratorium Report. It states, quote, all major new developments of 5 or more lots require a community meeting with the neighboring property owners before a formal application is submitted to the city. prior to formal engineering plans being drawn. This did not occur. Without a community meeting, these are just empty promises by the city on paper. It denied, exactly what it says in the report, the neighborhood the opportunity to provide input to the development of our neighborhoods instead of leaving it to the developers to define. What transpired in this, this is very short, was the developer submitted an application in February and the public was only notified 5 days before a vote in June. The state minimum is 5 days. When did Fairhope start doing the minimum? This does not seem fair to the surrounding property owners. I brought these oversights to the attention of staff. They seem unconcerned about the process and more preoccupied with overwhelming regulations. I thank you for hiring additional staff because they are overwhelmed down there. Because of these concerns, the community was not properly notified and they mailed out the wrong site plan. I ask you to follow your own recommendations. Frankly, I challenge if this item should even be on the agenda tonight. The minutes of the meeting for the Planning Commission have not been published for over a year. They're not on the website and they're not available. I've asked for them several times. How can the community or the public verify if our comments were ever included, what and why this PUD was recommended to the council without reviewing what was in the minutes? I am opposed to this particular PUD site plan because it is not superior rezoning to the existing zoning on the property. It negatively affects the character of surrounding properties. The difference in lot sizes, visual and sound, can be remedied by larger lots touching the existing adjacent lots. This can be reinforced with a 30-foot buffer that protects the existing large oak trees and vegetation on the west with a fence. There should be a provision in this, but we have not had a chance to bring this to anybody's attention. The density compatibility analysis is flawed. They have used a quarter-mile radius, but they only notified property owners within 300 feet. Compatibility analysis should be consistent with notification. The compatibility density currently is 2 units per acre. The weighted actual is 1 per acre, but they are asking for 3 per acre. 3 per acre is too dense for this neighborhood. They incorrectly assume that larger R2 lots can be subdivided. This is an incorrect assumption. Because of deed restrictions and being on cul-de-sacs out there, we do not have enough city paved frontage to subdivide. So we will be landlocked. The zoning ordinance states, quote, a PUD is supposed to be innovative in design. The Planning Commission stated in June, quote, this PUD is not just to get a higher density. The only innovative thing about this PUD is how thin can we slice the pie? They and I do not like mere cookie cutter design, and this is not unique. The chair stated he does not like anything about the proposal. They would like to see larger transitional lots with an innovative design and diverse lots. In effect, a Fairhope neighborhood we can be proud of. Yet the developers have failed to do what was asked of them. I ask you to put some teeth in managing unprecedented growth. Do not allow developers to keep defining cookie cutter neighborhoods. Do not allow shotgun houses on shotgun lots. I'm glad to answer any questions. Thank you for your time.
Sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I'm David Wetzel. I live in Fairhope over on Windmill Road, 10242 Windmill. I'm here tonight in a rage. I grew up in this town. This is selling the farm down the road to unprecedented, unbridled development. It is insane. My grandchildren cannot swim in the bay. Yes, some kayakers saw some poop in the bay. And they said, well, it didn't come from the sewage system. Because why? Because you grind it up and you can't see it, and you can't measure it. And you can't tell me you have enough sewage treatment to handle the development that you're doing. You want to develop this piece of land, keep it zoned the way it is, put some septic tanks in it, have some room, have some places for people to breathe. I've been to LA. You like LA? Detroit, before it fell apart. You want strip malls? There's another piece of land. You got 100 acres here that you're responsible for. You're going to butcher it. I've got a friend that's got a sawmill. I know what's happening in Baldwin County. I see the carcasses. I'm standing here before you for those that can't speak. The animals, the hawks, the eagles, the birds, and the children who cannot go swimming in the bay. They tell me, oh, it's fine. Put the sewage in the bay, it goes out. Well, people, it comes back in. I have a microscope. I see it. We still got BP oil emulsified in this bay out here. Go take, when the tide is low, go in Belrose Avenue in Daphne, or go down here to Fairhope, put it in the pipe when the tide's out. Stick your nose in the mud. You are elected. The past city council is elected. These ordinances were written for a reason. That was to keep this place the beautiful place that it was. Try to. If you don't put the brakes on this thing, people, it's going to look like Malbus. Go out there. I've lived here all my life. It's absolutely ridiculous. Now, get some guts. Tell these people to pay attention to the ordinance. Make a community that when the grandchildren grow up, they can go swimming in the bay. Little cute pictures in little magazines that shows kids swimming in the bay, no. The bacteria have always been there, yes, but not like they're in there now. Back in the day, the same bacteria were there. There was 3 or 4. You got a cut, your immune system could handle it. Now there's 1,000. Get a cut, and guess what? Your hand rots off. If you're lucky, you live. It's not funny. It's not silly. I've told them I'm a fool to come up here and talk to y'all. Nothing can be done. And everybody tells me that, and they don't do anything. Well, you're hearing from me. And I know it's hopeless, but I'm telling you, think about it.
Thank you, sir. Quick question for staff. This is zoned RA. Is this currently in the city limits of Fairhope?
Yes, sir.
Is this currently in the city limits?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Martha Monkton. I'm at 9571 Bay Meadows Avenue. Okay, so last time I was standing before you, I was asking for speed bumps on Bay Meadows because we have Firethorn at one end and Sedgefield at the other, and we were having traffic issues. Now they would like to dump 200 to 300 cars, considering 2 people per household, 2 cars, plus teenagers, onto Bay Meadows Avenue. If you have been out there, you'll know this is a country road. It is not like the city streets around here. It is paved in a different format. The road is not going to be able to handle this kind of traffic. We have water pressure issues out here every day. If you get up in the morning, you have to hope we can get enough water to come out of our tap to brush our teeth. We have electric issues. We have kind of brownouts through the day, all day long. They've told us that, well, they said they were going to put a sewer system out there, but all of us in this area are on septic tanks. We're concerned about this development coming in. They say it's not going to affect our way of life. It's not going to, see, there's been no significant impact to those of us living there. 200 to 300 cars driving up and down your street a day is a big impact. They keep saying, well, we're going to get a traffic light at the end of Bay Meadows. And today it's at some point we will get a traffic light at Bay Meadows and 181. That would be helpful to have a traffic light there because it is very difficult to get out onto 181 when you want to go that way. We would prefer this development not exit onto Bay Meadows Avenue. They say they can't put it out onto 181 because of AlDOT. Won't let them turn left onto that street. Let them turn right, let them go down to 144 and turn left to get out onto 181. That was the plan, their plan originally. Bay Meadows Avenue is an unlit, unlined country road. We have children who play in the street. We have Alzheimer's patients on our road. We're very concerned about our way of life. Please take this into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mocker. Is there anyone else?
Good evening, council members. Thank you for the time and for your service. My name is Mario Gabriel, Jr. I am a retired veteran, and I live at 465 Fortune Drive in the Firethorn subdivision. I want to make a very short statement to you, and then I'm going to post 4 questions. And for the sake of brevity, I will expect that the question or the answers to the questions can be provided as a result of the minutes when they are published. I moved to Fairhope 3 years ago under the promise or the premise of a quiet, quaint, great, friendly city. I know growth is desirable, and it's also expected, especially when you have a city like Fairhope that attracts people like it did me. But it has to be done, that growth has to be done in a responsible manner. Okay? It has to be done with control measures in place. And so far, I don't see that here, and not just with this proposal, but some of the other subdivisions around here. Without question, this development is going to have a detrimental effect on the value, real and aesthetic value of the property where I live in the Firethorn subdivision, as well as the other areas in the vicinity of this proposal. So I will ask you, I'd like to know what criteria was used to determine and to make the statement that the effects on the Firethorn subdivision will be minimal. When you have 3 houses in 1 acre, and you have houses just across the street that sit easily on half to 1 acre per house, can't tell me that it's not going to have a detrimental effect. I would like to know, somebody provide to me how the criteria was established to make that statement. I would like to know how the 4-laning of Highway 181, which we know is coming, is going to affect the Firethorn entrance, since the statement was made that the 4-laning will take place on the east side of 181. That includes the entrance to my subdivision. Entrance, land and property that I'm paying for in my dues and my property taxes. I would like to know why such high density of 3 homes per acre. I know I could easily say somebody's greedy and somebody wants to make as much money as possible. But I would hope that somebody has a different reason, a valid reason. In last question, and I hope none of you take offense to this, but I would like to also know who in the commission has a vested personal interest in this project. And I ask that because I saw recently something that had to do with a judge that has a law practice and somebody's involved in something that has to do with a project. That's a conflict, either way you look at it. You can flip it upside down or right side up, left side down, it doesn't matter. If you have something like that, a relationship of that type, there's a conflict of interest, and that should not be. So I ask again, if any of you or anyone in the Planning Commission or in the City Council has a vested personal interest in this project, I would like to know that when the answers are provided. Thank you for your time, and thank you for your service again.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Is there anyone else? Okay.
Good evening. My name is John Heinrich, H-E-I-N-R-I-C-H. I live at 410 Fortune Drive in the Firethorn subdivision. Real brief. This is a sardine factory. Why do they have to cram so many houses in so little space? If you look at the Firethorn development, it's a much aesthetically pleasing and more valuable piece of development property than what's been proposed here. Mr. Gabriel doesn't want to talk about greed. I look at that, that's greed. You don't need that many houses in that small a space. It's going to impact the property value of the surrounding area. There's no way people are going to be able to get out on 181, even if they have a traffic light, if you're going to dump that many more people coming from that direction at that intersection. It's poor planning. It's nothing more than a developer wanting to build a sardine factory. That's what that is.
Anyone else?
Councilman Burrell, Council. My name is Joe Rector with Mullins LLC. Represent the landowners and developers on this property. I just want to touch on a few things, and then I will, if I need to wait till after the public comment section, I can, but I would be available to answer any questions you may have. But I wanted to touch on a couple of the items that were mentioned. The first gentleman was referring to the input by the public and by the Planning Commission over the past several months, because as they mentioned, this process started back in March. We've had a number of public meetings that were advertised in this very chamber over the past 6 months. We've heard from several members of the community that were in this neighborhood, all had various concerns they expressed. This site plan didn't look like this when it started. This is an evolution of what has been taken as input. We had 2 entrances heading out onto Bay Meadows originally. We had a lot more density on the lots than we have now. We were up over like 110 or so units on this at one time. And the Planning Commission had comments about the fact that there was a long-range plan put out on this corridor through here where you had like the intersection of Twin Beach and 181 is kind of a commercial or higher density center. And the comment that was referred to previously about the chairman stating that he didn't like anything about it was several iterations ago. It was not this iteration. Because at the Planning Commission it did receive unanimous approval because we had met all the criteria and all of the comments that they had given us in regards to reducing the number of lots, moving the green space around, moving the site back off of Bay Meadows at the north end to protect the trees there, giving the 30-foot corridor in the park on the west side to give us a buffer from the larger estate lots. And also, there's another PUD that was approved, like Mike mentioned, a year ago that's directly connected south of this. The stub road that goes to the south connects to the Twin Beach PUD that was approved there previously. And originally we had a proposal of one of these sites that was the exact density that was approved on that one. And the Planning and Zoning Board had expressed their opinion that it wasn't just to be a continuation of the same density that had been approved before, but that as you got further away from that corridor of Twin Beach and 181, that the density would reduce. So they were at like a 3.2 units per acre, and we're below 3 now. I know some may not think that sounds much, but it averages out to be, you know, a dozen lots or so after you get it, or 10 lots or so. So we took all of those into consideration, also worked with staff to provide these open spaces, the parks in the center. We moved around a bunch of the development to do that as well. And, you know, felt like that in the end, we listened to what was being suggested and what was being directed to us, and we've now come up with this plan here. And as I say, it was, we've had multiple meetings here in this very room, brought it before the Planning and Zoning Board a couple of times, and this most recent time for their final approval recommendation to this board.
Any questions? Any questions? Okay. Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. Public hearing still open. Is there anyone else? Okay. I will close the public hearing, and barring any further action, we will let this lay over for final consideration until the next council meeting.
Sir, could I ask one question, please?
Yes, sir.
We were going to formally request if we could have a chance for immediate action on it, because we got got a hardship on us right now of a closing that we're trying to do on this property, and we've, as I mentioned, have worked on this for a number of months, and we're kind of running out of time.
Closing is when?
The closing is, I believe, few weeks. Right. Yeah, the close.
Well,
we're supposed to be trying to close on this within a few weeks.
Okay. What's the date of our next council meeting? 13. November 13th. Council, does anybody want to make a motion for immediate consideration?
I've got some concerns about the density. I mean, I think obviously doing it as a PUD, you can bring forth a plan, which is what y'all have done. I know you've already brought it to the Planning Commission, and you've gone over the various iterations you've done with them. But we're going with RA. Currently, you can get 1 unit per 3 acres is what it's zoned for. Is that correct? And so we're going from 1 unit per 3 acres to 3 units per 1 acre. It's like 9 times the density that's currently allowed. I think that's a pretty substantial change. I'm not against PUDs. I'm not against bringing forth a plan. That's just a big jump in density for something inside the city limits that's currently zoned RA. So I don't know. I may go back and read some of the meeting minutes from, if those are accessible. I know somebody said they weren't, but I feel like we generally see those. So I may go back and read some of that just to see some of the various iterations it's gone through and what the comments were. But that's all I've got.
Okay. Did anybody want to make a motion? Okay. I don't hear a motion for immediate consideration. Okay. We'll let this lay over for final consideration to the next meeting. Item number 6 is a public hearing to amend zoning ordinance number 1253 and request to zone the property of Gayford Village Partners Incorporated as a planned unit development concurrent with annexation. The property is generally located on the west side of State Highway 181 between Gayford Road and Fairhope Avenue. This parcel contains 75.93 acres, more or less. Can I get somebody to introduce the ordinance, please?
I'll introduce it.
Okay. Yes, sir.
And thank you, Council President, council members. As the Council President read, this is a request for a conditional annexation. And council members, is a bit of a complicated PUD in advance of, should the PUD be approved, a multi-use type of development. And we'll begin, as we do all of these types of cases, with a look at the zoning map, as well as a look at the aerial image for this location. You'll notice in the zoning map the crosshatch area showing the subject property. We'll explain this in a little bit better detail here in just a moment, but this is currently unzoned property outside the city limits. You'll notice its proximity to the biggest landmark in that area is the Walmart store on Highway 181. Council members, just a quick rundown on some of the participants in this potential development, and as we heard, it's just under 76 acres. Mr. Tom Mitchell is with us here tonight on behalf of the developer, Gayford Village Partners, and then Mr. Scott Hutchinson with Goodwin Mills and Kaywood is the engineer of record. And you'll see the PPINs listed right there, and again, as we said, it's unzoned Baldwin County currently in its location. This layout is included, this would be included in the PUD ordinance should the PUD be approved. What I'd call the council's attention to here, and the color coding is should be a little bit clearer on your screens. And this proposed PUD would have 3 units within lots within the units, with the exception of Unit 2. This drawing is part also of the proposed PUD ordinance. We'll explain the components of this here in just a moment. Just want to give you an overview of what we have right here. The 3 units, I've color-coded them right here. It explains the breakdown of that. We'll put it in a little bit larger text here on a future slide. Council members, this is a conceptual master plan. This is strictly conceptual and shows the layout of the 3 units. The lower units are the commercial units. The center area is the multifamily. And then it's planned north as you look at the drawing, but it's actually the west side physically in the field contains the single family units. And council members, this is a brief breakdown. This slide is just a breakdown of the acreages of the different units and explains the modeling of the PUD. And so as you'll notice, Unit 1, 16 lots, it is modeled after B2 zoning. Unit 2 is modeled after R5 zoning. This would be the multifamily component. Unit 3 is modeled after R3 zoning. We'll go in a little more detail on the components within those here in a moment. We're still kind of doing our overview right here. The review criteria for this development, or for this PUD, lies heavily and draws heavily from the comprehensive plan due to its location at the intersection of Highway 181 and Fairhope Avenue / County Road 48. This slide right here is a direct excerpt right out of the comprehensive plan, current comprehensive plan. You'll notice that what we've done here is identified the subject property where it falls in this map. And what this map shows you are the village centers as contemplated by the comprehensive plan. And you'll notice it has the large star symbol, the starburst symbol, right there at 181 and Fairhope Avenue. A little bit difficult to read here, commissioners or council members. But this excerpt from the comprehensive plan, and what it explains and what it contemplates is the density transition and the uses contemplated at one of these village centers. And it's a bit difficult to see here, so I apologize for that. But what it basically says is that a higher density and commercial units are contemplated, and these are the areas the comprehensive plan in its current form identifies to place these types of uses, because here you have commercial, multifamily, then transitioning to your single family. Similar situation here, council members. This is another excerpt from the comprehensive plan. And what it goes into, the comprehensive plan talks about, does not really give a ton of detailed guidance, but it basically says is that the commercial units closer to the right-of-way parking in the rear are desired by the comprehensive plan. What I'd call to your attention here is that this component would have to be reviewed during the site plan review process, and there's a component of that inside this PUD that the PUD self-imposes. So that is the mechanism for enforcing, or at least contemplating, this requirement of a comprehensive plan is via the site plan review process. wanted to show this. This was something that the Planning Commission was very interested in, and we wanted to make certain we illuminate for them, and I'll share with the council here is, again, unzoned property. It falls right on the border of county planning districts 14 and 17. And so, again, we've shown where the subject property lies. You can see the areas in green are, of course, within the city limits of Fairhope, and the plain white background areas are the unzoned areas. So some more detailed comments, council members. As we mentioned, the location of the developments within a village center as contemplated by the comprehensive plan. The uses and density transition are also contemplated by the comprehensive plan. Just to illuminate this just slightly is, and we talked a lot about this with the Planning Commission. They were very interested in having this question answered, is that what if it does not come into the city? What if it is not annexed into the city? Well, certainly the city would still have its subdivision regulations, its multiple occupancy project requirements, but it wouldn't have, the city would not have any use regulatory authority if it remained in the county. We'll talk about Unit 2 and Unit 3. Unit 1 does not deviate in its uses, its requested uses and lot size from the zoning ordinance. Unit 2 is modeled after the R5 zoning district, and it asks for 232 apartment units. Now, what it doesn't ask for is changing the maximum building height. That would remain at 30 feet, and it would ask for the lot size of the entire unit contain those 232 apartment units. Then Unit 3 is modeled after R3 zoning district, and in the slide and in your packet it goes into great detail about how they are modeling it after R3, but the lots are slightly smaller than the R3 size lots. What I would submit to the council, and we can go into super detail on this if we need to answer questions, is that the effect here is that we requested, and they've reflected in their staff report and in their documents to staff, the 7.5-foot side setbacks. The effect of that, and plus the other adjustments they made to satisfy the Planning Commission's requirements, cut down the number of single-family lots that were initially requested from 77 to 67. So that results in a development density right now of about 4.75 units per acre. R3's allowable density is about 5.6 units per acre. It's allowable. So the number of lots requested in the area and on the size of property requested, at least at this stage, at the PUD stage, even with the smaller lots, still is less dense than the allowable of a typical R3 zoning. And a couple of conditions of approval we worked through the Planning Commission. When examining this case, we realized that PUDs in the landscape ordinance are required to have a 10-foot wide buffer, and there's a couple options with which they can comply with that. At the staff level, one of the things that we requested was having that buffer installed along the west side of Unit 3 when land disturbance occurs along Unit 3. So that buffer would be in place when those units are built. So that's a condition of approval. Also, in working with Richard Johnson's assistance, we came up with this condition of approval that a master drainage plan would be submitted for the entire site when the 3 units are created. And then just some notes for the council and the public at the bottom of the slide right here. Subject application is a conditional annexation. And just to reiterate, sidewalk placement, internal circulation, landscaping, roadway improvements, whatever requests that the individual tenants when some of those units come about, that's all going to be addressed during the subdivision, site plan, or MOP reviews. So the triggers for the traffic studies, all of that will occur, coordinating those traffic studies with ALDOT. All that will come about through the various subdivisions and MOPs should this PUD go forward. And then just a brief note here, council, of course, that as we saw, a great majority of the criteria for this development was evaluated based upon the current comprehensive plan. If this PUD is approved, and as the future components of it come about, when that comprehensive plan is updated, it'll be evaluated against the future comprehensive plan. And so, council members, these are the 5 conditions for the recommendation for approval. These are the 5 conditions of approval that staff presented to the Planning Commission. And you'll note the text there in red that memorializes where one has received compliance. What I'd like to focus on is the Planning Commission's conditions of approval, and the Planning Commission concurred with staff and added a 6th, and they requested to rearrange some of the lots. And what I will do is flip back very quickly, and I can probably best describe that on the conceptual site plan. If you look at the conceptual site plan, the initial plans we looked at and reviewed with the Planning Commission, if you look in what would be plan northwest corner, there is a commercial lot. There were residential lots there, and then you notice on the far east side, pretending that north is up in this drawing, you'll see how the residential units turn and make a 90-degree angle turning down to the south, again, pretending north and south. That was requested by the Planning Commission, so that is now reflected in both your conceptual plan and in your layout for inclusion into the PUD ordinance. And so, council members, the master drainage plan we talked about, the side setbacks, that has been attained compliance. So what we're noting here, and the recommendation to council memorializes that. The 10-foot wide buffer we talked about is item number 3. Legal counsel advised us to memorialize via condition of approval that the site plan review shall be mandatory for each of the lots within units 1 and 2. That's a self-imposed requirement by the developer, but legal counsel felt it would be appropriate to memorialize that in a condition of approval. Also, item number 5, the subdivision regulations, including multiple occupancy project provisions, shall be required for creation of lots and units within the clump PUD. Again, memorialized here as a condition of approval. And then we talked about number 6. Some of the residential units were moved over from the west side to the east side, and a commercial unit was moved over from the east side up to the west side. So council members, I appreciate your time, and a bit of a complicated development here. I'm happy to answer questions on behalf of staff. And again, Mr. Hutchinson is here with us tonight as the engineer of record on behalf of the developer.
Questions, council?
Buford, if you don't mind just sort of talking through this with me, just since we got 2 PUDs back to back on the agenda, I just want to look at sort of the differences. Where first one is within the city limits, it's currently zoned RA. This one is outside the city limits and it's currently unzoned. So as you stated earlier, the use, currently without annexation, the city has no real say-so in the use of that property as far as how many, if it were to be apartments, how many apartment units, what could be built on there. I mean, essentially, whatever they want, right?
Yes, sir, essentially. Without the benefit of a PUD or other zoning district, then it would just simply be a matter of what could adequately and safely fit on the site and comply with the subdivision regulations and building codes.
Okay. Thank you.
Buford, you went through a lot of information there, and I've been scanning this document pretty thoroughly, and I still haven't seen it. Can you tell me how much green space there is, and as a percentage of the total development, how much there is?
So that's a great question, Council President. So at this stage, since we don't have the subdivision components prepared, I can't accurately answer that question. I can tell you that the residential area, with it being about just under 5 units per acre, about 4.75 units per acre. If my memory serves correct, that's going to require about 20% green space, and that'll come about during the subdivision process, and then the MOP, which would be an MOP process for the multifamily for the apartment complex process. That's going to be either 20 or 25% green space.
So if that percentage goes up with density, then there's a possibility that they won't be able to achieve that density, and then they have to iterate on what the actual solution is, right?
Yes, sir, and that can occur from time to time, that if you have a development that allows, say you have, we're speaking hypothetically here to answer a question, if you have a PUD that allows 232 units, once you fully detail the site, lay out the buildings, lay out the drainage, all the different drainage conveyance systems, is that once everything is laid out, sometimes the actual subdivision or actual MOP approved may not be able to use up all the units.
So as I'm looking at that plan, and I'm seeing the residential area on the west side, and I'm seeing the high-density multi-family dwellings in the middle, and the commercial south and along the east side and to the north side. I do see, just drawn in that, you know, conceptually I see some green space, but it looks far from 20% right now. And I guess is the R5 phase, what's its requirement for green space?
So the two slightly different requirements, because obviously if the R5, if we, ignoring a PUD for a moment, R5 allows 10 units per acre. The PUD here is requesting 10 units per acre. It's then up to, of course, the engineer to engineer the site to be able to handle everything and all of those units. So we don't have that yet because we're not at that subdivision / MOP phase. So that would be the challenge. That certainly is the challenge of the engineer, to be able to utilize that site, get everything in that they desire in the PUD, as well as put in all of the infrastructure, all the green space, all of the retention, detention necessary to make it work. And that's why we follow this. If this goes through, then we follow that with that. For that unit, for unit 2, that would be an MOP process. And then for units 3 and 1 would be a traditional subdivision process. But the evaluation of the infrastructure, the evaluation of the drainage, all of that is the same process.
Okay. Council, other questions for Buford? Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
We'll now open the public hearing. If you'd like to address the council concerning this proposed PUD, if you'll please come forward to the podium and state your name and address for the record.
David Wetzel, 20 Bell Road, Windmill Road. I live right around the corner from this proposal. If you folks have ever tried to go anywhere at 8 o'clock in the morning, have you noticed that it's maddening traffic? It is insane to try to go anywhere. From Fairhope to Daphne takes 30 minutes. Right? All those little houses, people are going to have cars, lots and lots and lots of cars. All that's going to need to drain. Storm sewage, storm water, all that's going to need some kind of sewage treatment plant. That's an awful lot of folks in a little bitty place. All these years we've gone by there, it's been in a field, pecan orchards, beautiful, beautiful pecan orchards and fields and crops growing. It's going to be gone. It's going to be final. Final, it's gone. Now we're going to divide. The man's up here talking about, well, I'm trying to pay attention to what he's talking about. He's going to do. What's he going to do? What's he not going to do? What's going to be? It's going to change later. What are you going to approve? The what? To change it? Well, maybe we're going to have this, and maybe we're going to have that. Maybe we aren't going to have that or this. And we don't even know if it's in the city of Fairhope. You know? Whoa. And once it's gone, once it's all pavement, it's pavement. Now I'm glad to see, I'm very glad to see that y'all are thinking about this a little bit. This isn't a final, online it said this is a final decision. And I'm like going, final decision? It scares me. It scares me for the future of this community, this beautiful community. You're going to lose it. I understand that I was told that if I came up and in any way interfered with this development, I was going to hurt somebody's living. 79 acres of land, millions and millions of dollar projects, not a living. Going out and working a shipyard like I did or in a pulley works for 30 years, that's a living. You know, making these roads, digging these ditches, building the houses, doing other things, that's making a living. Taking a piece of land and dividing it up into 800 places for people to live in a bunch of shopping centers and all that to make what? One good thing, money, 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 make a whole bunch of money. It's way past the living. When you got over $2 or $3 million interest coming in every year, you're way past the living, folks. But when you can't get up in the morning and go downtown without getting in a snarling traffic jam in a town that once was just a beautiful, peaceful place where you knew people, people knew each other, or half the kids in the school were in agriculture, and it was really fun. It was really nice. The other ones had shrimper dads, people fished, you could eat the fish out of the bay. You got fresh vegetables right off the street. We went and got cow's milk right down the street. This wasn't that long ago. I'm 68 years old. It wasn't that long ago. This has all gone downhill in the past 30 years. Gone downhill. We don't hear bobwhite. We don't hear quail. I got a few rabbits in my yard. Maybe everybody's afraid of rabid foxes. Yeah, that's a big thing to be afraid of. And you know, it got a wetland full of all kind of animals and stuff like that, but now we got a deal. You can fill that wetland in, and you go dig a big hole. Just a big hole, and you put water in the hole, and you call it a fair trade. Okay, I'm fussing about this because it's all about the money. It's all about how many people you can get crowded into some little bitty bam, 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 right next to each other. I've been in those kind of communities, and that's why we live here and not there. So you're bringing there here. I'm not saying you are. I'm saying this is the desire. But the desire isn't for us to have a good life. Desire is to make a bunch of money. And do what you can. Slow this thing down. Make them do it better. Thank you.
Sure, thank you. Is there anyone else?
Good evening, Council. Gary Gover, 300 Lincoln Street in Fairhope. The more I think about this particular project, the bigger the impact it has and the more complex it seems. This development not only needs to work within itself well, but it also has to fit in a very complicated arrangement at this particular center within the village plan for Fairhope in order for Fairhope to continue to work well. So we have to take into account the presence of things like Walmart, large other blocks of land right here in the center of this center, which have no defined purpose or function at this point. So there's a lot of unknowns. There's a plan that has to work well for transit, a plan that has to work well for walkability, all very complicated. So I think that in order to make this project work well in Fairhope, it's going to take an extra level of architecting and design to see that it fits not only within the city, but also that it continues to function well itself. This is something we haven't quite done before. And I'm not opposed to this kind of development. I think that it's what we have to do for the future. I'm just a little concerned that we need to walk this one a little slowly, a little carefully, and think outside this particular box to make sure that the village center itself will function well. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Okay, seeing no one else, I'll close the public hearing. Council, do you have any questions for staff? Okay. Hearing none, we'll let this lie over until the next meeting for consideration for final adoption. Does anybody else need to take a break besides me? About a 5-minute break?
Sounds good.
We'll take a 5-minute recess, all right?
Yeah, go get me one, will you? I don't know where we can get it. Hey, well, as much business you do.
Being now, we'll move on to item number 7 on tonight's agenda, which is an ordinance amending ordinance number 1510, known as the Personnel Rules, Policies, and Procedures Ordinance regarding Section 4, Wage and Salary Administration, 4.06 for on-call employees. Who is going to speak to this? Ms. Mazer, are you going to speak to that? Would you please? And this is just a little bit different than I believe was discussed at the work session, right? Pardon me? Yeah, would somebody like to introduce it?
I'll introduce ordinance.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, this is basically, what we've taken it down to is basic housekeeping. We do have a section in the handbook, which is an ordinance that addresses pay for on-call utilities employees, and yet Public Works, IT, as well as the magistrates all put in on-call time and are not compensated for it as the utilities department. So in an attempt to make all things fair and equal, that's what we're doing. This is for hourly employees. It does not address exempt employees.
Had this included law enforcement and correction officers prior?
No.
Okay, so that's being included. That's one of the changes
right.
as well.
That came to us after the conversation that night at the work session, and we realized that that was yet another element that had been left unaddressed.
You know, when it was presented to us at the work session, was it paid for 8 hours or actual time work for each weekend day, or was it for each weekend? I kind of thought it was maybe for each weekend. Did I misread that prior?
I'm not sure what the difference is each weekend.
Well,
day
if you're
or
on
each
call for
weekend.
Saturday and Sunday, you'd get paid 16 hours. And I thought the way it was written before, I could have swore it was 8 hours for the weekend. Unless you worked more, unless you got called out. And you had
Well,
to
you
work
get called out,
20 hours.
then you're on the emergency call out.
That was really the only question. I'm not even sure I have any issue with it being 8 hours per day, but I thought it was also to, you know, kind of keep in check. Well, if you're on call all weekend and you never get called, you were getting paid 8 instead of 16.
Right.
That's the way I thought it was written prior.
I
But,
think
boy,
that's the
I sure
way
don't
it
want
is
to make a
in the
mistake
handbook.
on
I'd
that.
have to double check the handbook now that you bring that up. It gets confusing after a while.
Anybody recall?
It's just that it is exactly what it is in the handbook now. It's 8 hours.
It is 16 hours. Was it 16 hours for a weekend then?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not a change in what's in the handbook now. It's just adding departments that had not been paid attention to.
Okay. I guess the only other question I had really was that on the exempt salaried employees, it says that they'll receive overtime pay at rate of 1.5 times their calculated hourly wage, and I guess I kind of questioned that a little bit.
During a declared emergency, that is actually in the handbook.
Yep.
Okay.
But that's only during a declared emergency. Otherwise, exempt employees do not get paid overtime.
Then what's the change then?
There is no change. That's actually the handbook
Oh, that's just
page.
part of, that's the handbook page then?
Yeah.
I don't see that as being the handbook page. Yeah, okay. Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. I got clarification from the clerk. She's earning her pay
There's a
tonight.
lot in there. After a while,
Okay.
it all looks
Council,
the
do you have
same.
any questions for staff? Okay. We don't have to let this lay over for this type of ordinance, do we? We don't have a public hearing.
Somebody wants to do an immediate consideration.
Is this the type we have to do that for this type of ordinance? Okay. Council, does anybody want to make a motion for immediate consideration? I don't really see the rush either, if we want to let this lay over for final adoption. Okay. I'm hearing none. We'll let it lay over for final adoption. We'll move on to item 8. Item 8 is a resolution appointing a director to the Educational Building Authority of the City of Fairhope for St. Michael Catholic High School. This would be a reappointment of Gary Coles for a term ending on the second Monday of November 2025. And this is all academic, as a gentleman prior to the meeting had stated. So I'll entertain a motion to appoint the director.
So moved. Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Okay, Mr. Coles is reappointed. Item 9 is a resolution the City Council approves and authorizes for the fiscal year 2020 the airport improvement project funding for the Fairhope Airport Authority. And you can find that back on tab 9. And once again, this does not commit the city to any funding. The airport provides their own, Airport Authority provides their own matching funding to the state and federal funding. So I'll ask for a motion to approve and authorize the AIP for the Fairhope Airport Authority.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Okay, that motion passes. Thank you, council. Item 10 is a resolution accepting the Eastern Shore Metropolitan Planning Organization's funding of a project to install turn lanes and signal upgrades at the intersection of Gayfer Avenue and Greeno Road, or US 98, for which the City of Fairhope will provide 20% local match, estimated at $148,681.41. Any questions? I think Mr. Johnson could answer them if you need them, or I could give a stab. Okay. Hearing no questions, I'll ask for a motion to pass this resolution.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Okay, motion carries. Thank you. Item 11 is a resolution accepting all of Fairhope's public utilities located in the right-of-ways within Polo Place subdivision for maintenance, and to authorize Mayor Karen Wilson to execute the maintenance and guarantee agreement between the City of Fairhope and the Teachers Retirement Systems of Alabama. I'll entertain a motion to accept those streets and right-of-ways, or utilities, I'm sorry.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Okay, motion carries. Thank you, council. Item 12 is a resolution to accept the streets, public right-of-ways, and all of Fairhope's public utilities located in the public right-of-ways within Pinewood subdivision, Phase 2, for maintenance, and to authorize Mayor Karen Wilson to execute the maintenance and guarantee agreement between the City of Fairhope and LA Development, LLC. Once again, just bookkeeping measures here.
So moved.
Second.
A motion to accept the streets right-of-ways and the public utilities located in right-of-ways, and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Okay, motion carries. Item 13 is a resolution the City of Fairhope vote to purchase the Kronos timekeeping system maintenance annual renewal for the December 30th, 2019 to December 29th, 2020. For the IT department, the type of maintenance renewal needed is on the Alabama State Department of Purchasing bid list, and therefore does not have to be let out for bid. The cost will be $22,834.52. I'll entertain a motion to purchase the timekeeping system.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Okay, motion carries. Thank you. Item 14 is a resolution the City of Fairhope vote to procure server licenses for Microsoft Windows Server 2019 data center for the IT department. The licenses are available for direct procurement through the Omni Partners cooperative contract. Therefore, they do not have to be let out for bid. It's already been nationally bid through the Omni Partners bid process. The total cost is $12,699.60. Entertain a motion for this purchase.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Okay, motion carries. Thank you, council. Item 15 is a resolution to award bid number 001-20 for pedestrian sidewalks in the Central Business District, rebid for the Public Works Department to Kelly's Welding and Excavation Incorporated, with a total bid proposal not to exceed $174,475. I need some clarification on this, if I may, Mr. Johnson. This is for sidewalks. Is this for the pedestrian crossing gadgets as well?
Yes, this includes the LED crossing gadgets on the 2 crosswalks here on this block of Section Street that crosses over to Pine and across from the Justice Center.
Very good. Okay, that answers my question. Thank you.
All right,
Anybody?
thank you.
That's the only 2 places they're talking about?
That's the only 2 places we're talking about in
That's
this
correct.
bid, right? Okay.
We've whittled this project down to just that, went back out for bid.
Right. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, if not, I'll entertain a motion to award the bid for the sidewalks.
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Okay, motion carries. Thank you, council. Item 16 is a resolution the City Council authorizes city departments and the Fairhope Volunteer Fire Department to use the city facilities, i.e. the James Nick Center and the Fairhope Civic Center, as long as the facility is available for their annual events at no charge. The following events have previously been approved and would like to have a standing approval for this usage and to allow alcohol on city property. The Gas Department for their annual Christmas party with the date to be determined with the staff of the James P. Nick Center, and the Fairhope Volunteer Fire Department for their annual Wives Dinner with a date to be determined with the staff of the James P. Nick Center. And Mr. City Attorney, I guess it's a resolution, and it says standing approval. So standing would mean until such time as it's not approved, right? Correct. It can't give permanent approval. I mean, it could be reversed, in other words. Okay. All right, council, I'll entertain a motion to pass this resolution.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay. Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Okay, motion carries. Item 17 is a resolution the City of Fairhope accepts the terms of the agreement for the loan of the Civil War era ship's anchor that was caught and salvaged off the coast of Fort Morgan in Mobile Bay by the family and estate of Robert Lee Taylor Jr. to be displayed in the city parkland and placement to be cited by the mayor and the council.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to accept the terms of the agreement for the loan of the Civil War era ship's anchor. Any further discussion?
Say thanks to the Taylor family for loaning it to us. I think that'll be really neat.
Yeah.
Have on display.
Okay. Any other discussion? Okay, we have a motion and a second, right, clerk?
Yes, you do.
Okay, having a motion and a second, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Okay, motion carries. Thank you, council. Item 18 is a resolution that Mayor Karen Wilson is hereby authorized to execute change order number 1 to bid number 29-19, the citywide road resurfacing program, by adding resurfacing of Liberty Street through the intersection of Pecan Avenue to the intersection of Pier Avenue due to emergency sewer repair over the week of October 14th, 2019 through October 20th, 2019 in the amount of $11,148.24 and award of the change order to Asphalt Services Incorporated. Entertain a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to issue the change order. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, please say nay. Okay, motion carries. Thank you, council. Item number 19 is a resolution the City Council authorizes and allocates funding of $2.65 million for the purchase of approximately 114 acres of land located on the northwest corner of County Road 13 and 32 as follows, taking from the investment CD of savings 1.065 or $1,065,146.07 from the prepayment debt reserve account $700,285.37 and from impact fees for the recreation portion of that $884,568.56 for a total amount of $2.65 million. And also, as amended at the beginning, it also authorizes Council President on behalf of the City of Fairhope to purchase the property listed above and execute all the documents necessary to complete the closing and to acquire title to the property. We'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second. Have a motion and a second. For comments, I just want to say that I've been reading some objections by the mayor to this property. I don't think the objections are valid. There's the comment about the National Park Service, which I heard did not look at this site, and I think that local control over recreation land for ballparks and such is much more well done by a local governing body and not a federal agency that's based in Washington, D.C. I also read the mayor's comments that their land appraised at $17,000 an acre. That's simply not true. The land appraised at almost $20,800 an acre. I think it appraised at $2.37 million. That was a certified appraisal. Correct me if I'm wrong there, Councilman Conyers.
That sounds correct.
So there's just a lot of things that are being said about this purchase, which should be, in my opinion, a very, very happy time that we're adding a lot of recreational land that should satisfy our needs for many, many decades to come. I also have heard a few people recently say that we're not going to be doing anything with that land for years, and I honestly don't know where that idea came from. You know, we could start planting that land, you know, as soon as, you know, in the next 6 months to a year. And there's many, many uses for this property. So I just caution everybody, don't read all the social media, don't believe all the social media that you read on this or other comments from other even officials that are making comments on this, because I think it's just sour grapes over us not purchasing another piece of land that certain people wanted us to purchase. This was less than half the cost per acre of that land. I think this was the wise move. Any other comments?
I guess just to add, I mean, I think that, you know, my initial objections against this were just due to having set a threshold that I'd be willing to pay up to, and this exceeded it, not by much. I mean, I'll give you that. You did a good job negotiating. You got it down pretty substantially from what we first had it proposed at, based on the appraisal coming in a lot lower than the proposed purchase price. So you negotiated it down. Just, I think it was probably within 100,000 of what I had set as my kind of arbitrary ceiling. So I think a lot of the comments about, you know, not doing this because of, you know, the appraised value being 17,000 an acre, you know, that's obviously, that wasn't accurate. I think, you know, my only concern is we got the Triangle, we've got the K1 Center, we need to do something with those two. If we acquire this, which we know we need rec land, you know, we have 3 major projects there to work on moving forward, and you know, if you had that crystal ball and knew what land prices were going to be in 5 years, it would make this decision really easy one way or the other, because you would know, hey, we either have to buy it right now or else it's going to be not available or be a lot more expensive, or we should wait, there's going to be a opportunity, but we don't have that crystal ball. So I don't know, you should do the best with what you got.
You know, we don't, Jimmy, and I'd say that, you know, it'd probably be I can't say for certain, but there'd be a very, very good chance that some of these PUDs that are being proposed tonight, it would look something just about like that in the next 5 years. There is very sparsely populated there, so the few people that do border this, you know, I apologize. I think that your alternative is to see, you know, 300 or 400 houses on that property, as opposed to some ball fields that are occupied, you know, portions of the day. Any other comments?
Yeah, I just reiterate kind of what Jimmy was saying. You know, I voted no on the purchase of this property, not because I don't believe we need rec land. I fully support the idea of acquiring additional land for recreational needs. I did just have a concern over paying above appraised value, however small that may have been in this case. That's it.
Okay. Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, if not, we have a motion and a second. I'll ask for all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Okay. Motion carries. Thank you. Item number 20 is a resolution. The budget for the fiscal year ending September 30th, 2019 be extended to allow the invoices and expenditures to continue as needed until the parts of the budget for FY 2020 are adopted. Entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay. Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay.
I will say that I hope it's a brief extension.
Okay. Item 21 is an application for a beer wine on-off premise license by John S. MacArthur for Fairhope Hemp LLC, doing business as Fairhope Hemp, located at 505 Fairhope Avenue, Fairhope, Alabama. Chief, do you know of any reason to deny this application? Okay, paperwork's all in order? Okay. All right, council, I will entertain a motion to approve the beer wine on-off premise license application.
So moved.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Okay, motion carries. Item 22 is an application for a restaurant liquor license by Fred L. Nolte for Nolecast Ventures LLC, doing business as Mr. Spuds, located at 18951 Highway 181 in Fairhope, Alabama. Chief, same question. Any reason to deny this? Everything's in order? I will say this, you know, I'm looking on these applications, and if you look at the addresses, there's no addresses given. There's cities given. There's one address on this one. On the previous one, there was there were just cities given. There were no phone numbers given for these references. So, I mean, we probably ought to require these people to actually complete the applications. They do?
They do.
They require them to?
Yes, we do.
Is that complete?
I whited it out for privacy.
Oh, it's whited out. Oh, okay.
It's been redacted for privacy.
It's redacted. Oh, good. Well, that answers that. Good. All right. I'll entertain a motion to approve this application.
So moved.
Second. All right. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
You want the unredacted version?
No. Makes sense. You did such a good job whiting it out, it just looked like blanks. All right. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Okay, motion carries. Item 23 is a request from KO and on behalf of Lakewood Golf Club, requesting 7 pole banners to be put up in Fairhope next year for the USGA Senior Women's Amateur Championship. The event will be held in September of 2020. I'll entertain a motion to grant this request.
So moved.
Second.
Council President, can I say something?
Yes, you may.
Our procedures say 3 is the maximum, and we only allow film festival to have 6.
Okay.
So it's up to you.
All right. Council, do we have a motion and a second? How many total do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. We have 12.
Sometimes there's events going on at the same time.
Do you know of any that are going on in September by chance? This past September, do you know of anything? September is it's a hot month. It's kind of a slow time. And this is a national event. It's not even just a local event. You're talking about, and no offense to any of the other events going on, but this is a pretty big deal. Do we have a motion in a second yet?
No, you don't.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay. Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Okay. Thank you. Motion carries. Item 24 was added to the agenda tonight, and I'll just read this. This was at the request of our operations director. It says, be it resolved by the governing body of the City of Fairhope, Alabama, the City Council of Fairhope desires to follow the state of Alabama requirements regarding the state bid law, and in particular, the advertising requirements for the estimated value of the desired project to be bid. The bids received for the side stream wastewater storage vessels were well above the anticipated estimate for the project and in excess of the advertising protocols that require statewide advertising notification of the bid, which could have attracted other bidders for this work. The City Council therefore rejects the bids received for this work and directs staff to solicit new properly advertised bids for the desired side stream storage project. Adopted today's date. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second. Motion and a second to reject all the bids and properly advertise more bids. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Okay, motion carries. Last item on tonight's agenda will be public participation for other items that were not on tonight's agenda. If you'd come to the podium and state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, council. My name's Sharon Hunt, and I live in Colonial Acres at 852 Hancock Road. And I have a question regarding the proposed fields that might be built in the land or the field that is right by the swimming pool. My house is adjacent to that property. I mean, literally, I can open my back door and see the football scoreboard. So I'm just wondering what it is that you may have in mind, if y'all have reached that point yet, as to what may be proposed to be built on that field, as far as what type of fields, out of fear of foul balls to the house, trespassing, the noise, especially if it's a high school field. My son was a baseball player, 2012, and went to state that year, so I'm not anti-baseball. I'm just concerned about what's going to impact my home and my living.
Ms. Hunt, that's a fair question. Let me see if I can try to answer that. So what was proposed recently was that we put 4 baseball fields on top of the hill up there, and I got some feedback that 4 fields may not fit there, that maybe only 2 fields would fit there. Another concern that I had was that the people of Colonial Acres had not been advised of what was going on there. The staff had asked that we put that on tonight's agenda. I struck that from tonight's agenda because I didn't feel like we had enough answers to the questions that were being raised. I will ask Councilman Robinson, who is on that board, and also the liaison to the rec department, if he wants to add any more. That's kind of a simple explanation, but that's kind of really, I think, where we're at right now.
I think that's correct. And there's been just a preliminary idea of putting 4 additional fields up there. It's not been engineered. It's not really been drawn out. It's sort of a conceptual idea right now that it's kind of in its early stages, that has not moved forward yet. I imagine if it does, and I hope it would in some iteration, there would be some involvement with the neighborhood and some sort of idea of exactly what would be put on that piece of property.
Okay. I currently deal with the Frisbees in the yard, people trespassing with the Frisbees. But that has somewhat been resolved. It still happens, but not often, because my house is the middle house. So the 3 main houses that would be the most affected, I'm in the middle. So just know that I am concerned. I'm not anti-baseball at all. My son, I mean, that's what helped make him what he is today. But the lights, the noise, foul balls to cars or windows. You remember Darryl Norris? He could foul a ball. It could go very far. So which fields are being put up there? How much noise, lights, things of that nature? Sure. Okay.
All right.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hunt. Is there anyone else? Okay, we'll close public participation. I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved. Second.
All right, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. We're adjourned.